Hello and welcome to the JSA Studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan, and today we are all smiles, baby. Today we're talking about the offensive line. We're going to go position by position and talk about who is starting and why I believe this offensive line is going to be returning Michigan back to having top 10 offensive lines in all of college football. But before that, you might have noticed I'm wearing a different hat than I normally wear. Did something recently happen that would make me want to wear a hat like this today and do my video with this hat on? I don't know. I might have made a 30-minute long video about it on Saturday, but I'm not so sure if I did or not. Anyway, with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by starting with the starting offensive tackles. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on the starting offensive tackles, but honestly not as much time. But I changed hats, by the way. I didn't like the shadow that the other one cast on my face. This one curves up a little bit more. My face is a little bit clear. Anyway, I'm not going to spend an unbelievable amount of time talking about these starting offensive tackles here because it's pretty much set in stone as far as I'm concerned. I understand that the young freshman 5-star Andrew Babalola is pushing for that left tackle spot. Okay, I get that. I think it's very unlikely he's going to dethrone Evan Link, at least at the start of the season. All right. Evan Link, I believe, is going to be the starting left tackle. If it's Andrew Babalola, fucking great. I'm all for it. Okay. We'll talk about Andrew Babalola in a minute. But I believe Evan Link is going to be the starting left tackle, and Andrew Sprague, I think is how you say his name, is going to be the right tackle. Okay. Sprague at right tackle, we do not know as much as we do about Evan Link at left tackle. Okay. We pretty much just got him against Alabama in the bowl game. And yeah, it was really good. He played really, really good in that game. It wasn't like phenomenal or anything, but as a redshirt freshman playing for the first time in that game, I thought he looked really, really good. But he's obviously a wild card at right tackle. You're hoping he's at least a 2-year starter at right tackle, and you kind of just don't have to worry about that for the next 2 years. However, hypothetically, he could not work out, and then you're looking at maybe moving Evan Link back to right tackle and putting Babola in at left tackle. However, I think this is going to be the tackle duo this season, okay? Evan Link is not an NFL tackle. I'm just going to be real with you. He's a guard at the next level. Kind of like how we had Jack Runyon at left tackle. Now he's made a career as a guard in the NFL. Carson Barnhart at right tackle. He moved into guard after Zach Zinner got hurt, but he was a tackle and they moved him inside, okay? Ladarius Henderson, also, same thing. He was a tackle and moved his ass inside. Michigan is the king of guards who play tackle in college right now. And Evan Link fits that mold. However, I think he's going to be a good left tackle. I don't think he's going to be a great left tackle. I don't think he's going to be like a first-round left tackle, like I believe Andrew Babola is going to be all of those things. However, I do have probably more confidence than I should have that Evan Link is at least going to be good at left tackle, okay? For a multitude of reasons, all right? A, he was horrible the first 10 games of the year last year. Genuinely unplayable. And they kept playing him because he's very talented, and I understand that. But he was really, really bad, especially against Texas when he was getting his ass kicked by a true freshman. I think his name was Colin Simmons, who I think is going to be very, very good for Texas at defensive end, but basically did nothing the rest of the year against anybody other than Evan Link. And he's really good, but he murdered Evan Link, destroyed him, and didn't particularly look like that the rest of the season. Now, Evan Link was very, very bad last year for 10 games. okay, after that second bye week, okay, there was a rumor going around that Sharon Moore, midway through the season, kind of took back control of the offensive line room. I don't know if that's true. It's just a rumor I heard, okay? I don't particularly have sources for basically anything unless I explicitly state I know somebody who might know something about this, okay? Otherwise, it's just rumor and innuendo. I heard that Sharon Moore kind of went in and took over that offensive line group at some point during the season. However, he's still the head coach and he has to do other stuff than just coach the offensive line. But during that bye week, I do believe that he spent more time with the offensive line than he probably should have as a head coach, because the team looked different after that bye week. The offensive line looked different after that bye week, okay? Because against Northwestern, Evan Link, at right tackle, mind you, an unnatural side for him is the right side, okay? So his natural side is the left side. Evan Link actually looked pretty decent. He looked good, even, you could say, against Northwestern. And against Ohio State, going up against NFL caliber edge rushers, I believe JT Tuimoloau was a second-round pick, and Jack Sawyer, I think, was a fifth-round pick. He might have been a fourth-round pick. I don't remember. But good, high-quality guys who are going to play in the NFL for a while type defensive ends, and he held his own. He got beat sometimes, but he didn't get destroyed like a lot of people, myself including, were anticipating him getting destroyed. All right? Then we have the bowl game versus Alabama, and Alabama has a ton of talent in the edge rusher room. A ton of talent. They move him back to left tackle. Again, his natural side, and I thought he was really, really good in that bowl game against Alabama. I thought he looked fantastic. So, going forward, I have some confidence that he's going to be at least a solid contributor at left tackle. Consistently throughout his time at right tackle and left tackle, Evan Link was a much better pass blocker than he was run blocker. Again, Texas notwithstanding. But he was a pretty average run blocker, and by the end of the year, a good pass blocker. So if you assume that he gets better, all right, and he can become a really good or maybe great pass protector and an above average run blocker, that's your starting left tackle, dog. I'm all about that, all right? Now, eventually, he's going to get kicked into guard. And I could see a scenario where Andrew Babola is going to go ahead and start at left tackle. And we're going to talk about that scenario right now when we also talk about the backup offensive tackles here. So the scenario at hand is Andrew Babola surprises everybody, ends up starting at left tackle, okay? What does that mean for Evan Link? All right. There is a scenario where it just means Evan Link is the backup swing tackle, okay? And you need a quality swing tackle, and Evan Link could be that for us this year. That's a definitive possibility. But there's another possibility that I think is more interesting. And that's if the right guard situation, which we will talk about, admittedly, not next, in the section after the next section. However, if the right guard situation does not work out the way that it should for a Michigan offensive line, I could see a scenario where we put Evan Link at right guard. Okay, he's played on the right side before. He did it all of last year. And I think he's going to be way better inside at guard than he is at tackle, and I already think he's going to be pretty good at tackle. So he might end up being the starting right guard if Andrew Babola just kicks ass at left tackle, all right? The smoke coming out of camp is that Andrew Babola has been very, very good, and that he probably could play if Michigan needed him to, but they're still kind of holding him back because Evan Link, even though Babola has been very good, Evan Link has still been like just ahead of him. So that's been the smoke that I've gotten here. So I do think if either tackle goes down, what will happen is Andrew Babola will go to left tackle. And then if it's Sprague that goes down, it'll be Evan Link at right tackle. And then Babola at left tackle. Or if Evan Link goes down, it's just Babola at left tackle and then Sprague at right tackle. All right. The other swing tackle here is Brady Norton, I think is his name, right? Yes, Brady Norton is his name, who is a transfer from somewhere. I don't remember where he was from. Cal Poly? Is he from Cal Poly or North Dakota or something like that? I think it was Cal Poly. I'm not positive, but he's a transfer from a smaller school. And he was very good last year, especially as a pass blocker, okay? And generally speaking, those guys do translate to the next level, guys that are very, very good or great like he was. He was a great pass blocker and a good to great run blocker a while at wherever he was. And I believe he's not really here for this year. I think he's here for next year to be the right tackle potentially, or the left tackle potentially, or to kick inside maybe even more, because he is very athletic. And I could see him also being a guard. However, I think he very easily could just be a utility kind of offensive lineman this year and next year. That's what I think Brady Norton's role is going to be. Could very well be wrong. He might end up being a starting tackle. He might end up being a starting guard. I don't know. But that's what I think Brady Norton's going to be. And as far as Babola, that's your franchise left tackle. Okay. He looks every bit the part of like a top 10 pick, Taylor Lewan, Jake Long type left tackle. All right. And that's high praise. Okay. It really is. But from everything that people are talking about with him, and I'm not trying to be an asshole or to toot my own horn here, but I am an asshole, so I'll do it anyway. I feel like I'm pretty good at figuring out what is smokescreen smoke and what is fire smoke. Okay? What I mean by that is smokescreen smoke is shit that the media puts out there to either bloviate or to not necessarily try to be misleading, but they are eventually, the effect of it is misleading. And fire smoke is stuff that the media is reporting that there's actual substance to. All right. And I feel like I'm pretty good at figuring out which kind of smoke is which. All right. I think the Andrew Babola smoke is fire smoke. Okay. I don't think they're saying it because they're Michigan people and they hype up every Michigan guy. Okay. I don't believe they're saying that. I think they're saying it because he's just that good, okay? He was a 5-star kid, I think a consensus top 10 prospect in this recruiting class. Like, this guy's a stud, and he's going to be protecting Bryce Underwood's blind side until they both get taken in the first round a couple years from now, as far as I'm concerned. I think he's going to be very, very, very good. Now, that's 2 starting offensive positions and their primary backups taken care of. Let's go ahead and talk about left guard and center now. So, left guard and center. When it comes to those positions here, they're set in stone. They've been set in stone for a while, okay? Left guard is Giovanni El-Hadi, okay? He apparently was going to enter the transfer portal and was going to leave Michigan, but came back because Michigan said, yeah, no, you can play left guard. That's your more natural position. So you'll be our starting left guard next year. And he came back, which is good because I don't know where we would be if we had to have 2 question marks at the guard position. All right. It probably just means that Evan Link would be the starting left guard and Babola would be the starting left tackle, but it's relevant for this conversation at hand. I thought he was okay to maybe like average to above average at right guard last year. Pretty consistent, probably our most consistent offensive lineman last year, outside of Miles Hinton. But I think he's going to be good at left tackle. Okay, so to recap here, left tackle, Evan Link. I think he's going to be good to maybe really good. All right. Left guard, Giovanni El-Hadi. I think he's going to be good. He's above average to good, in my opinion. Greg Crippen at center, okay? I think there was a lot of people that were really weird about the center position last year, okay? Giudice, who was the starting center at the beginning of the year, was a very good pass-protecting offensive lineman. Had a couple hiccups early on in the season because he wasn't used to calling protections and stuff like that, but then he kind of figured it out. And either way, he was a solid offensive lineman. Greg Crippen was the exact opposite of that, okay? Quality run blocker, not a very good pass blocker, all right? However, Giudice was an awful run blocker, okay? So Greg Crippen was a better overall player than Giudice, even though Giudice was a significantly better pass protector than Greg Crippen, in my opinion. However, again, you factor in they're improving. We've got a real offensive line coach this year, which we'll talk about in my coaching video, which will come out whenever the fuck that comes out. We have a real offensive line coach this year. So I think all of the offensive linemen that have been here from last year to this year, I think you can pretty safely assume are going to take a pretty large step up and be better than they were last year, and I am anticipating that for Greg Crippen as well. So I think Greg Crippen is going to end up being a good to really good run blocker and an average pass blocker, which would put him in the good category as well. So we're good at left tackle, we're good at left guard, and we're good at center, okay? And then I think we have the potential at right tackle to be good to very good at right tackle with Sprague as well. If he plays like he did against Alabama, and improves a little bit, which you would expect him to do, he's going to be fantastic. So really like him as well. And the last position here is going to be the right guard battle. All right. And we're going to go ahead and get into that here next. So the right guard battle has been characterized by its lack of information, as far as I've been able to tell. There's some smoke here or there about who's really competing for it and stuff like that. And as far as I can tell, there are really only two players competing to be the starting right guard position. And one of them has kind of separated themselves to the point where most people are just kind of assuming that he is going to be the starting offensive lineman. And that has nothing to do with who I put on the screen here. On the screen is Lawrence Tatar. Okay. I could not find a photo of Nathan Afobe that I could use to put here. So I just put Hatar up there. But I do think Nathan Afobe is going to end up being your starting right guard, at least at the beginning of the year. I think Hatar will probably get playing time. I think he's probably the first guard off the bench. If we get a guard coming off the bench, it'll probably be him at either left guard or right guard if somebody gets hurt. However, I just don't believe he's going to start, okay? Because there's a little bit of a difference between, Norton jumping from high FCS to high D1, as opposed to high D2, skipping FCS and going to high D1, okay? That's a bit more of a jump than it is for Brady Norton. Like, Brady Norton, I think, can play and be relatively effective, pretty seriously, okay? I don't know if Hatar will be all that good. Now, the good thing for him is he's 6'5" and 330 pounds. So, he's got that going for him, all right? But Nathan Afobe is a better athlete. I think he does have some playing experience. He played like 20 snaps last year, I think, which I guess is something, as opposed to Hatar, who's been a starter for 3 years at Ferris State. I am not of the opinion that Hatar is going to do a whole lot for Michigan this year. I think Afobe is going to be the starting right guard because he offers a lot more potential than Hatar does, and also Nathan Afobe is probably going to be here next year, as opposed to Lawrence Hatar, who I think might maybe have one more year of eligibility, but, and with the NCAA nowadays, you can just get as much eligibility as you fucking want. But I am not of the belief that the right guard battle is all that interesting, because I think it's either going to be a safe He's probably not going to be good, but maybe he can be average. In Lawrence Tatar versus Nathan Afobe might end up being really bad, but he also might end up being really good. And generally speaking, I'm always a swing for the fences. You play the guy with the high potential before you play the safe sort of guy, like 100% of the time. I'm all for putting talent on the field as opposed to guys that aren't going to fuck up. But that's just me. A lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people are more conservative when it comes to that aspect of football than me. All right. But I will always use a tiebreaker as the most talented player or the player that has more potential, just in general, period, at every position. Finally, we're going to end this video here by talking about the two depth pieces that are probably not going to be all that impactful this year, but I do really like going forward. Okay. That is on the left here, former 5-star, and then he committed to Michigan, so he fell out of 5-star, contention, because that's what happens when you commit to Michigan. Former 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood, and a very highly ranked 4-star offensive guard who I believe is a redshirt freshman this year, Blake Frazier. And these are two guys that I think are going to be pushing for starting jobs next year if a couple of pieces that I don't necessarily anticipate leaving end up leaving. Okay. Ty Haywood specifically, I think, might be pushing for right tackle should Andrew Sprague have a really good year and end up going to the NFL or entering the transfer portal or something like that. I think Ty Haywood very, very easily could end up competing for that starting right tackle spot. Blake Frazier, I think, could be the heir apparent at left guard for Giovanni El-Hadi, who I believe is out of eligibility after this year. As far as other players not listed here, Caden Strayhorn, who the recruiting services were very split on coming in as a true freshman, is a natural center. And he is someone that I am relatively excited to look at in the upcoming years, because there's a decent possibility he's your starting center next year. I think Michigan would probably try to go in the transfer portal this year for a starting center, but if not, I think Caden Strayhorn might take that leap into being that starting caliber center. All things considered, this is a group that has a ton of depth, a ton of possibilities. I feel pretty good about going 8 deep in this offensive line. Okay, so you've got starting left tackle Evan Link, starting left guard Giovanni El-Hadi, starting center Greg Griffin, starting right guard Nathan Afobe, starting right guard Andrew Sprague. Okay, then you've got backup left tackle Andrew Balboa, backup right tackle Norton, and I feel fairly confident in Lois Tatar at being the backup right guard. Okay, and then Evan Link is probably the backup left guard, and God forbid Greg Griffin gets hurt or go down. I don't know what we're going to do there, because I do not have any confidence in anybody behind him at the center position. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on the depth of this team. I think it's very good. Although the center position, we really need Greg Griffin to stay healthy this year. Anyway, that is all that I have for you today. So to this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comments section below. And now, with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.